Okay, we are live.
Great. Welcome everybody to House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. It's Wednesday, February 26th, and we are continuing our work on H125. And we are joined today with Stephen.
Steve or Stevens.
Okay, with Steve Collier from the Agency of Agriculture, and we will go around the room and introduce ourselves in one sec. So we'll introduce ourselves, we'll let anybody else in the room, and then we'll turn it over to you for the record. So I'm Representative Kathleen James from Bennington 4 District.
I'm Scott Campbell from St. Johnsbury, Caledonia, Essex.
Richard Bailey, Memorial 2.
Chris Morrow, Wyndham, Windsor, Bennington.
Michael Southworth, Caledonia 2.
Christopher Howland, Rutland 4.
Darren Torrey, Washington 2.
Ben Kleffner, Chittenden 13, Burley City.
Of course, Wyndham 2.
My name is Scott Dolan. I'm the Weights and Measures Specialist with the Vermont Agency of Agriculture. I'm this year if there's any.
Great, thank you. All right, for the record.
Good morning, Steve Collier I'm the General Counsel of the Agency of Agriculture. It's very good to meet you all, and I have to say that's probably the most efficient committee introduction I've seen yet. That's very good.
Wow. Chair.
You have that?
We've practiced a lot.
Yeah, I see that. I was about ready to start checking email.
Awesome. Great. Well, we are here to get your thoughts on H125, and I believe our committee assistant had reached out with our specific questions. So take it away.
Sure. So in the Agency of Ag, a lot of people don't know this, but we inspect weights and measuring devices. So we have a section that's called the weights and measures section, and any commercial entity in the state that is selling something weighing or a device that requires it to be weighed and sold to the public has to be licensed and inspected. And the goal behind that is to make sure that consumers aren't being defrauded by inaccurate scales. So if you're seeing basically any kind of weights and measuring device where it's not prepackaged, not already, if you package it in your warehouse and send it out and it's got the weight on it, that's different. But if you've got a consumer facing scale or a weights and measuring device, that's something that has to be licensed and inspected. So that includes gas pumps, and it includes the meters on oil tank trucks, and it includes the meters on liquid petroleum gas. So we inspect all of those, almost all of them every year, to make sure that they're calibrated correctly and to make sure that people are getting what they pay for. Yeah.
All right. Could you run back over I wanted to just jot down or make sure if somebody was jotting down the three things. I think you said three things.
So there's gas pumps, there's meters in every gas pump. In a standard gas pump, there are 4 different fuel meters in that pump. They can be up to 6, but a standard one where you've got 2 pumps on each side of the pump, there's 4 meters in there. And each one of those meters is dispensing gasoline by the gallon. And we have our folks like Scott Dolan, who's here, and other people who work with him go to the stations and make sure that those meters are dispensing fuel correctly, so that people are getting the accurate amount. There's also, when an oil truck drives up to your house and puts it in your tank, there's a meter on that truck that's calculating how many gallons you're purchasing, and that tank, after the oil truck leaves, you get that receipt that shows how many gallons. So that meter on those trucks also have to be tested. Yeah.
Is the gas pump meter, so what data would we be able to easily glean from you on that? The location of the gas pumps and how much gas is sold?
We have nothing to do with with volume. We regulate accuracy.
So location.
We can give you a location of a business,
okay,
but we can't do anything to tell. And there's a lot of consolidation. So we license both businesses and we inspect individual meters, but we will not be able to help you gauge the amount of fuel that's consumed. I think there are other ways to do that, but it would not be directly through us.
That's fine. Okay, so the location and then the trucks.
So each of the trucks have to be licensed, and there's even, as an example, we even license some of the trucks from New Hampshire companies that deliver fuel to Vermont. So, there's some, I don't know if there are any in New York or Massachusetts that do it, but we would do the same thing with them. But if you're selling in Vermont, then you also need a license to make sure that that meter on your truck coming into the state is accurate. And we do the same thing for liquid gas. So liquid petroleum gas also has a meter on the truck, and we inspect that. And then in addition, and this is a new area where we have very incomplete data and it's burgeoning, but electrical vehicle supply equipment, which is, we test, there's meters on that to make sure that things are properly dispensed by the kilowatt hour. And we also regulate that, although that's burgeoning, it's very incomplete. That's developing. There's national standards that apply to all of these things, and they're adopted in state statute to make sure that all states are doing them consistently. And for electric vehicle supply equipment, and this is specifically that's available to the public. So if you have a home or even an apartment building, there are a lot of things that are exempted. So it's not even close to comprehensive coverage. But if you were selling electricity to cars to the public and you're not a utility, then we regulate that as well. But that's new. We're just starting to license those programs. And there's two different types of chargers. It's a level 2 charger, which is pretty slow. And then there's a level 3 charger, which can charge a car roughly 20 minutes. We don't even have the equipment to test the level 3 charger yet. And those standards have just been adopted. So we are now testing, as of this last year in 2024, we started testing level 2 supply, level 2 meters. But we're starting to do that with license. So it's going to take a while to build that program out. But eventually we should also have information on all of the folks who are selling electric, who are operating electric vehicle supply equipment available to the public.
So I had a couple of questions. One on just the locations of gas pumps or electric vehicle supply equipment. You would have that if we were looking for just where are the gas stations and it's hard to collect that information from, say, fuel tax, because the fuel tax is paid by might be paid by a company that owns several gas stations, right? So we wouldn't know necessarily from the address of whoever pays the fuel tax where the gas stations are, but you would have that information.
We have the information. It's in a database, which means that you have to query it specifically to get what you want. So
Right.
but that can be done depending on historical data is harder to get than current data.
Right.
But yes, we do know. And also a lot of as I understand it, a lot of the registration is done by the businesses. So it's not always perfectly accurate in terms of they may use their business address instead of the location of their pumps. But yes, everybody. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but when you collect data, you're going to have the address where that data came from. Will you not, or will you just have the company?
Well, there's the licensing and then there's our inspections.
Yeah.
And those are, so, when we go out to inspect something, we know where we're going and we have that information.
That's what I'm asking.
We have it, compiling it,
Fine.
is not.
Pulling it out of the database, right? Understood. Yeah. All right. Okay. Right. So that's one thing I was wondering about, and also about, especially about EVSE, electric vehicle supply equipment. You are just testing for accuracy, and not for. Would you? Well, let me form this in the form of a question. Would you record if the equipment was not working?
Oh, of course, yeah, and it's not just accuracy. There's also there's some other standards. I don't know all of them, Scott. I'm sure Scott could tell you if you want to know, but essentially you have to sell it a certain way. You have to sell by the kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
You also have to advertise if you're charging to use the space. So there are some other kind of consumer protection oriented things that we're checking for, but the core function is to make sure that the electricity is being accurately dispensed. And if it's not, then we would require the company to correct that. And if they don't, then we would have the ability to take a lot of actions, including cease and desist or issue penalties.
But those other bits of data you just mentioned, how they're charging for it and whether they're charging for parking in the space or anything, that stuff you also collect. That's also part of the data.
When we do an inspection,
You do an inspection, right?
Yeah.
Which is annual. You're hitting every meter annually, is that? I think-
well, we haven't done it yet because I think we did 264 maybe last year or something like that.
Yeah,
But
It's actual meters.
we're still in the process of finding out where they are,
Yeah.
because there is no existing database of that. And
Right.
so we're relying on public sources right now
Yeah.
to identify them, find them, get them licensed, get them into compliance because it's a brand new
right.
program.
Right. All right, and then one last question, really more about the gas side than the electric. How often do you find meters are off or not delivering what they say they are?
I don't think it's a lot, but Scott could answer that better than I.
The actual measurement is off on gas pumps less than 2% of the time. And of that 2%, probably 1.5 to 1 3/4% is fuel being given away. Because that's just the natural tendency of the way the meters are designed, that when they wear out, they tend to give fuel for good keeping.
Yeah.
However, there are situations where they can fail in the other direction as well.
Yeah. Okay, so not very often.
And we're not going to tell you where those are.
I guess that would be the next question.
Rep. Sibelia?
So with regard to gas, gas pumps, so there are private, well, they're all private. They're all privately owned, but not for sale. So like for use, right? I would imagine on some farms, there may be gas pumps, that sort of.
So we regulate commercial devices. If a
Yeah.
business has them for its own employees, then
Yeah.
we wouldn't regulate that because they're not selling them.
So that has to do then with thinking about the electric vehicle charging stations. So which ones are you? So it's just the ones that are publicly that are charging for the charging?
Well, that's a really interesting question because it's, in my opinion, the electric vehicle supply equipment is not well defined. And there's electric vehicle supply equipment. There's also electric vehicle supply equipment that's available to the public. So we are currently in the process of registering or licensing electric vehicle supply equipment that's available to the public. The potential challenge with that definition is the exemptions are really broad. And you can read it in a way that, as an example, Costco could arguably set up electric vehicle supply equipment and only allow its customers to use it. And it wouldn't be something that you could read the definition to say that we wouldn't be able to regulate that, because if they made it only available to its customers. And we don't think that's really what the intent was, because if you've ever been to Costco and gone through their fuel pumps, you see how much use they get. So arguably, if it available to the public under definition means available to anyone. And so if you restrict access, and I think it was more designed for an apartment building where maybe that's part of your landlord tenant agreement, or maybe a business is offering it as a courtesy to their employees, but if you, so that in our view, arguably the exemption sort of overrides the intent, but that's not something that we tried to address yet because we're still building the program. We don't even have the capacity to test the level 3 chargers yet, which we believe is the future, at least in terms of mass sales to the public.
And one more question on the oil tank trucks, which is another thing you inspect. So then you would have a number of trucks that are registered in Vermont or doing business in Vermont? Which ones are you?
Our intent is to license every truck that is delivering gas or oil to Vermont. So if you're selling if you are using a commercial weights and measuring device in Vermont and selling it to the public, then you need a license to do that. So with the trucks, so it depends. Sometimes we're doing a business, sometimes we're doing an individual device. Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe with the truck, each truck is required to have a license. So the business is a licensee, but then there's a separate license for each specific truck that's making deliveries. Is that correct, Scott, or no?
Yes, for the most part. There are trucks with 2 meters. Sometimes they have separate meters just to make delivery easier if they're delivering like on-road diesel, because obviously that's a non-dyed product versus other dyed product. Some companies will have trucks, a single truck with 2 meters, so they have to license both of them because it just makes it easier as far as contamination in their delivery. But yeah, and it's all vehicles delivering to Vermont customers, and that includes New York, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. We attempt to license all those devices. Obviously, things that are moving are sometimes hard to catch. And the New Hampshire ones, we actually go and we inspect those because New Hampshire doesn't have an active weights and measures inspection program. New York and Massachusetts do, so those we just reciprocate with the inspection.
So where do you get the information about the registration? Are they registering with you for
Yes.
weights and measures?
Yeah.
So you have the information about all of the trucks that said they're registering a truck.
Truck or a meter. Yeah. Right. The meter on the truck. So
Yeah.
that's why if a truck has 2 meters, then both meters will be licensed. The idea being we have to make sure that each meter is accurate.
Can you share that data? Is there any reason you can't?
No, there's nothing that's protected about it. Again, compiling it may be challenging depending on, it would be helpful to know exactly what was desired to try to figure out how to best deliver that as efficiently as possible. But yes, we have the data. Again, it's no volume. It doesn't tell you anything about how much consumption. It's just a number. So if a company consolidates,
Yeah.
the number of businesses may go way down, the number of meters even may go down. That may not change
The
consumption.
number of trucks, right?
Right.
And no, this is not meant to be kind of a snarky question, but I mean, how are you keeping that data? I mean, is it like in a spreadsheet?
No, it's in a database.
Okay.
There's national databases that we subscribe to, which are not perfect. Some of them are quite dated, but we're in 2 different databases that we collect this data in.
Go ahead.
Okay, whoa. We'll go this way. Representative Tori?
My question is just not related to this report exactly, but in the EV role that you're now playing, did you have to get extra staff to do this, or were you able to accommodate this in your system?
My memory is we got 1 additional person, and we also needed funding to buy the device to test the level 2 charging. So we did have to have an appropriation to do that. And that was 2 or 3 years ago. We started doing, but we didn't have the equipment until last year. The equipment was over $100,000, I think.
And then the last piece of equipment is also for $1,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Who is next? Brett Bailey?
Yeah, just a quick question. Is there a fee for each one of those meters?
Yeah.
The fuel oil companies and how much is that?
$25 for gas, I
Gas
think.
pump is 25, and oil truck is either 100 or 150. And propane's slightly more expensive than oil, so we'll give it to probably 175
And that's
per year.
not per meter, just per truck, per
Per
vehicle.
meter.
Per meter.
So if they've got 2 meters, it's $250 on a fuel oil truck.
On a truck, yes. On a gas pump, it would be what, $100 if you have 4 meters in the.
Yeah.
That's annual.
Correct. Annual licensing fee.
That's you.
And that money helps to fund our operation.
That's
So that's an annual license. That's not paid on inspecting. That's just paid with their annual.
Correct.
license fee. Yeah.
That's the cost of, if you want to operate one of these meters, you have to pay that fee. And that allows us to inspect it to ensure that it's dispensing the materials accurate.
Sorry, a quick question on back to EV stuff. My understanding is there is nobody, either state or federal, who has sort of regulatory authority over publicly available where people are charged for a fee for charging their cars over that equipment. So as far as standards about how they take payment, whether they take a credit card, for example, or you have to be a member of their network in order to use that EVSE equipment, or standards of keeping the equipment repaired or anything like that. Nobody has regulatory authority, as far as I understand. Is that square with your understanding?
The handbook, Scott, can you answer that question about?
Yeah. So NIST Handbook 44, which is something that's compiled and put together and has standards for all weighing and measuring devices, does give jurisdiction when we adopt by reference the whole book.
Mhm.
So we do have jurisdictional authority over the weights and measures end of those devices, which is
Just the accuracy of
accuracy, the method of sale.
the method of sale too.
Yes,
So
right.
whether they take a credit card.
No. Whether there's like, they have to sell by the kilowatt hour, right? You can't
Oh, I-
sell like at your house. You wouldn't expect Green Mountain Power to charge you for the time you were using, but
Yeah.
you would expect them to charge you by the unit of energy, right?
Okay.
So we have authority over those things. If something is broke and somebody doesn't want to fix it, we have no authority to make them fix it.
Okay.
If something is out of tolerance or doesn't meet a specification and they wish to continue using the equipment, then we can force them to fix that equipment to meet
Okay.
specification or tolerance.
Okay. Yeah, but it's the extent of
Yeah.
regulatory authority that anybody has, as far as we know. Yeah. Okay.
And I would just add, that's currently for us only on level 2 equipment. Not that we have the authority over level 3 chargers, the fast chargers.
Yeah.
But we don't have the equipment to test the accuracy.
Right.
We're working on that and we will have that, but
And I don't know if you mentioned the timeline and I missed it, but when do you think you would have that equipment?
it depends on the budget.
I think after the committee.
I think we have, I believe we have carved out some money to buy the equipment, but I'm not certain.
Just so what I've heard is we're definitely not getting it this fiscal year. It may not be next fiscal year, so it could potentially be the following fiscal year when we actually have money to purchase this equipment.
Do we know how much it costs?
112,000, give or take, somewhere around there.
So not that much more than level 2 should equipment.
No, it's mostly the same thing. And just so you guys know what this equipment is, there's a box, basically a Peloton case, the hard plastic case that actually has the meter and the testing equipment. The problem with EVSCs, unlike a gas pump or an oil truck, you can't put the energy back as of now. So with this, there becomes a big, like the current one we have for level 2, it's called a toaster, right? Or a load emulator. It's basically a big heater. And the current one we have is roughly like it'll sit in your lap. It's a big thing. The one we need to get for DC level 3 is more, it's like this tall by this wide and it barely fits in the back of a pickup truck. It used to be on a pallet, weighs 250 pounds. And so that is at least half, if not more than the cost of the equipment of just figuring out where you're going to put the energy when you're done.
Got to buy a pickup truck too.
Those that you have.
And hopefully an electric one, then you can
Yeah.
plug it in.
Representative Howard?
So, when this started, Green Mountain Power had the license to sell by the kilowatt hour, so the charging stations charged by time plugged in. $1 an hour or whatever for level 2. When did that mitigate to those people starting to being able to charge by the kilowatt hour sale? Or are they converting to kilowatt hour sales?
A couple things there. One is the utilities. We don't regulate the equipment that's sold directly from utilities. That's part of our division of authority. It's another thing we want to explore because I'm not sure that it's set up necessarily correctly, but it's something we need to talk to the Department of Public Service about and just evaluate and talk to the legislature about like how do we want to handle those? Because as far as we know, there's no one regulate how those are dispensing right now. But the other part of your question is, I think it was in January of 2023. I think it was either January 1, 2023 or 2022 when the handbook. So there's a national conference of weights and measures, which helps establish the handbooks so that the standards can be uniform throughout the country, because it would be a disaster if all 50 states were doing things differently. So that handbook gets updated over time, and EVSE wasn't part of the handbook until it was either 3 years ago or 2 years ago. And that's when it became that you have to charge by kilowatt hour instead of by time. And the reason is if you're charging by time, you have no idea how much power you're getting unless you're also told how much power is being dispensed. So the idea of kilowatt hour is so that consumers, know what they're getting paid for, because time can vary greatly depending on the device itself.
You can plug it in for 2 hours and you have reached the maximum charging capacity in 58 minutes. But you still paid for a minute. An hour and a minute is 2 hours. I can attest to that.
Is that right?
So it's, right.
Well, and we respond to complaints. That's part of our mission. So when folks bring something to us, we have our own routine schedule, but we get a lot of complaints. Some of them would surprise you, including the weights of what's it called? When you buy Chinese food at a scale and you don't properly deduct the cost of the container. Yeah.
Terror waves.
Terror waves.
Representative Southworth.
I'm good at the moment. Yes.
Okay.
And is there a fee schedule for those electric meters?
Yes.
And what are they gonna be?
Is it on?
$25 a piece. They're the same as,
Okay.
they got written in as a separate line item to all our other meters, but they probably should have just been rolled into the same thing, even though the equipment is much more expensive. It's just one of those things the state's going to take the hit on that.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, so keeping our focus on H125, do folks have additional questions about the data relevant to this bill that Ag can deliver to us? Yes.
Does the Department of Ag have a stance on this bill?
an opinion on the bill? Do they support or?
No, I mean, we haven't really talked about it internally, honestly. I just wanted to come and give you the information that we have. I wasn't sure exactly what the objective was, whether it's to determine whether we're transitioning to renewable energy or whether it's to do something else. So if you're talking about how the volume of power consumed, we don't feel like we have information, but it doesn't address that. If you just want to know where things are, we have that information. And I guess our biggest interest would be that we'd want to compile it as efficiently and effectively as possible. So if we can run a query, but whenever you have databases, it depends on what you're looking for. So it can be very easy or it can be very challenging. If somebody sends a public records request asking for every email you have, that's impossible, literally impossible to do. If you get a targeted request of exactly what you want, it can be quite easy to do. So I guess that would be our biggest interest, is if we're going to be providing this data, we just like to know exactly what you want so that we can work with you to make that as efficient as possible.
In the bill that we're contemplating, A&R would take the lead, and we're making sure that we're including really clear legislative language saying that we would be working only from existing data sets. So our goal is to keep it to a query.
You said, did you mean
DPS.
public service?
DPS and A&R.
Okay.
So anyway, we're trying to make it super clear that we're looking for existing data that isn't going to be, we're not looking for new work. Yeah, Representative Kleckner?
And to answer your question about the goal, and anyone should correct me if I can state this clearly.
Don't worry.
I think we have a two-part concern. One is making sure that people who are driving gas-powered vehicles do not end up with no access to fuel.
Mhm.
And the other is making sure that people who want to drive electric vehicles have access to charging stations. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, and that, the state fleet is able to go and visit electric fleets, able to go and visit any community in the state.
And home heating oil as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that was my concern, but everyone keeps telling me not to go there. Well, I didn't mention that.
Right. Well, I mean, if we're collecting the data, that should be a part of it, just in case that becomes an issue, right?
But, excuse me, but the home heating fuel was part of the bill. That
It
was
is.
a major,
Yes.
what I consider to be a major part of the bill. And we'll talk about that. later.
Yeah.
Yep.
The same concern that people who want to continue heating with oil have access to fuel that someone will deliver to their
Yes.
station. And that it won't be unduly economically burdensome with excess distance charges and all that stuff.
That's helpful to know. Thanks.
We've got time for one more question, and we need to.
So one of the things is the concern with some folks in the committee is service areas, which you don't track at all when it comes to delivery of heating oils and so on. So it's basically the only information you give us is number of trucks in the meter.
Correct. We don't go to the consumer's home or have those addresses. Right.
Okay, thank you.
You count meters, not trucks. So, yeah,
Correct.
so if some of these have two meters, why would they have 2 meters on a oil delivery truck?
I don't know.
I can answer that question. It's mostly for fuel contamination reasons. If you're selling because some trucks have a clear fuel, like if they're delivering on-road diesel to a farm, like whoever may want on-road diesel, and then they've got number 2 or an off-road diesel product. Sometimes, and again, it's getting rarer and rarer. I would say there's probably less than 10 now that have dual meters, but again, that's going from memory, and that's why they
They have 2 sections of their tank. They have
multiple
truck
tanks.
the truck has multiple compartments.
Always good to bring the smart one with you when you come to testify.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
No, thank
Did you have, do you have any written testimony you could submit?
No.
Okay.
Is it? Yeah, no, I don't.
Okay. If it would be possible, just you don't need to summarize the entire, content of our conversation, but if you could just submit a few bullet points on just the key data sets that you told us, it could be half a page. Here's the data we gather and that we could pull with the query. That would be great.
Okay.
Super.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for being
Yeah, thank
here.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All righty, Jack, I think we can just keep moving along. We now have, let's see, I think, let me see.
Touch screen?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I noticed that the other day.
Yeah. It is kind of a big
Jack just moved in.
with his finger. All right, I am just double checking our agenda. We have half an hour to try to finalize our budget memo. I'd love to get it final and take a vote on it this morning so we can get that off our plate. And then at 10 o'clock, we have the Agency of Digital Services coming in. I did send you all this morning, I think, the suggested language that ADS is going to be bringing to us. Secretary Riley Hughes, and it's posted on the website. Secretary Riley Hughes can be here from 10 to 11. And but the rest of her team can stay from 10 to 12. So we'll see. Hopefully we can get a lot accomplished on that. Bill this morning before we break for lunch at noon. So all right, so the governor's proposed budget, I sent out this morning our revised draft, and Jack probably has it posted on the web page by now. Jack, is that posted on the web page by now, or is it just in our emails?
What's the name of that? I posted a bunch of stuff this morning.
It's I see it. It's the budget letter, and it looks like you've got it up there. So
Okay, fantastic.
everybody, if you go to the date tab and click on today, under energy and digital infrastructure, FY26 budget letter to probes.
Is it different than the one you sent out in the email?
No.
Okay.
So I highlighted some things that we had talked about and changed yesterday. So, sorry, let me just zoom in there. All righty. So, Jack, maybe you could put it on the screen. Is that possible when you're afar?
I believe it is. Let me poke around.
Okay.
But after if you want to start.
Okay. So I think we've discussed and agreed on everything down to the first highlight. And then we agreed yesterday on that highlighted section that I highlighted, but I just flagged it for everybody. That was new from the original letter that I drafted over the weekend. But this is the few extra sentences we talked about including and have included to make our intent really clear that we think this is very important and that we intend to follow this as a committee. And then you can see the new language that we agreed on yesterday about the Department of Corrections. And I did let the Corrections and Institutions Committee know that our language had changed. I think they're still going ahead with their recommendation, but this is what we had talked about yesterday and I believe agreed on unanimously. So we should be good on the first page. I put in, and I'll change this obviously, but I put in that we voted because that'll need to be in the final letter. And that we voted today unanimously, which I'll change if it's not a unanimous vote.
And you have yesterday's date there.
Oh, right. Thank you. So I think our last thing to discuss is, we had sort of a late breaking, request to include a couple of sentences, just saying that we were aware of, an IT related, project that was underway and that might be, we always like to kind of plant a little flag for probes about things that might be coming up. So Rep. Tori, can you take it over?
Sure. So I just sent a couple sentences out via email.
Great.
This morning. And so this would just provide a little heads up. I'm a little confused actually how this would have normally been in a budget. Like the project that's got phases, not knowing how long each chapter is gonna be. I guess I'm a little confused about, I'm still learning how ADS budgets work. So this would have been expected to be in the Agency of Human Services budget request, that they would have this Vermont, IES project, contract happening in this year? Or does it show up in the ADS budget? So this is my own learning. I'm not actually sure exactly what I'm flagging or what we're flagging.
Rep Smelia?
Yeah, so I think what I heard Ms. Schulberger say, which makes sense to me, is that it's a project in motion, and this is a flag to the Appropriations Committee that there may be additional information coming that we don't have right now.
Yeah. I guess what I'm just wondering is, as a committee, in having this jurisdiction with these projects that move the way they move, like,
So we would want to see it.
yeah, I'm just wondering how their budgeting process works. I guess I don't have as much insight into how to.
Let me look for. And again, unfortunately, AHS was not able to join us on short notice. So this is the big ongoing project that we've heard about the IE&E
Right.
upgrade.
Brett Bailey, did you have something?
Yeah, well, I did. I'm just trying to, isn't that system being upgraded?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not quite sure why we need to mention it.
I mean, I think it's not a bad thing to mention, just because in the BAA, it was the human services piece that was so. That was where the big spending gap was. They went over budget a lot, and of course, we're hearing that they're going to be changing the way they do budgeting, and that kind of thing won't happen as much. But since we have some intel about this project that it is moving along and that they are getting bids, and that it could go under, it costs more in this fiscal year. So,
in FY26.
yeah.
Mhm. So I think, so we're still evaluating the bids. Let me send this. I thought I sent this to the whole committee. Did I not? My inbox is a bit of a thing right now.
It to the whole committee. Did any?
No, yours did. I don't think we have.
You did send it. I might suggest that, while we're trying to figure out the bigger question, where it says VT-IES, I think we should spell that out, because people may have no idea what that means. I mean, it's
Yeah.
integrated enrollment and eligibility.
Yeah, and the other thing we could do is, if we put a blue header, just like the memo has, we could spell out that it's the IE&E as well.
I'm sending what info from AHS we have to the full committee. Jack, could you? I just sent out an email, just pop it into a little PDF and put it in our budget, FY26 testimony budget folder, okay?
Got it.
Okay. Yeah, Rick Southwood.
So ADS has oversight of this project, correct?
Yes.
We haven't heard from ADS on this project to the extent that the person testified to yesterday, correct?
We have not, no, we haven't. It was part of our ongoing, we've kind of flew by it a little bit.
I would be hesitant to add something into our letter that we haven't had the agency overseeing that project wait.
I'm just thinking, we're gonna have it right here at 10 o'clock. Would it be appropriate to just ask the question? Because I don't want to include anything in the memo.
Yeah,
It doesn't need to be there.
we can. Let me,
We're learning about all this. It seems like we should ask that.
So it could be
Okay.
a quick.
and then I want to tell you, I'm going to call it on this. If we'll take 10 minutes on this with Secretary Riley Hughes, and then we're moving on. And if we don't have clarity, we're not including it, because it's not worth bogging down, quite frankly. So, alrighty. So I'll ask her right now.
Do you want to take a vote on all the language that we have to date, or?
No, let's
Just wait till-
let's wait. So, we've got more time. Hey, Jack,
Yeah.
can you please put at 2:30 today, FY26 budget governor's proposed committee vote, not proposed vote, not considered vote, not possible vote. We're voting at 2:30. All right, so, and I will email Secretary Riley Hughes right now. I'm going to forward her your language, okay?
Okay.
Please, Riley Hughes. Secretary. And we only have Secretary Riley Hughes for an hour. So seriously, this is like a 5-minute talk. And then we're blowing it off. Please see below. We would like to spend the first 5 to 10 minutes getting your quick take of this. We've been requested to include a brief mention in our budget letter. Okay, great. So I can, when we're done, I will take the highlights off. Just quick straw poll. This is just informal. Everybody's good with everything's here once I fix the date. Last call.
Yes.
Okay. All righty. Super.
Representative Cecilia, I think that-
No, I was just saying yes. I know I'm in a blind spot.
Okay. So, our committee clerk, do you have we'll be voting. Do you have the
Well,
form? This is our first vote.
okay, but we won't be voting till 2:30, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good because I have clerks training at noon. So I will use that opportunity to ask a question about the budget.
Great, that's timely.
Because it might be that all you need to do is have it in the memo the way you have it.
It could be.
So I will confirm.
Yeah. I learned a piece of State House lore, which is that it's really only been in the past couple of years that budget memos have been something that committees even vote on. So, alrighty. So looking over the agenda for the rest of the day, we are back at 10. And we have on our committee page and in everybody's inbox, I sent it out early this morning, but it's in there from me. The suggested language changes that are coming from ADS on this bill. Give it a read before, if you've got a minute. If you haven't looked at it yet, give it a read. It's a fairly substantive request. And so we really need to be, the clock is ticking on crossover. So I think we really need to be ready today to understand what they're asking us to change, make sure we understand why, ask every question we have, and make sure that we are ready then as a committee to decide what we think about the language. And then I think they're also going to show us some changes to the dashboard that they already have in motion, which is great. So we could be, I'm assuming we'll go right to noon with that, or I'm sorry. Yeah, looking at the wrong thing. Right to noon with that. And then this afternoon, we have a little bit of a problem. I've now had 4 members tell me that they can't be here at 1. So
10.
10. I thought people can't be here today at 1. When's the press conference?
10.
Who's not gonna be
Oh, is
here?
there another press conference? We have a press.
No, it's at 10. It's not this afternoon.
The
The military one is up.
Military one's at 10. Okay. So that's good because that's not everybody at once. I thought we were in danger of losing quorum.
There's another one
So-
at 1.
I thought I heard something about that.
I'm not, I'll be here, obviously. So,
I want to step out at 1 or.
Well, okay, but so 10, we have Secretary Riley Hughes from 10 to 11, and then she has to go. So I know that our folks who are going to the military press conference, you'll get back as soon as possible because we're going to move forward with our work today. And then at 1 o'clock, we only have Ellen for half an hour, but we only have one member who's not going to be here. So we'll just move forward with that as well. Great. I was mixing up the times when folks were going to be gone.
I think you said, Secretary Riley Hughes, 10 to 11.
10 to 11.
Anything at 11?
Yeah, we're going to keep working with ADS. It's just that Secretary Riley Hughes has to leave.
Okay.
So I've got 10 to 12 blocked out for the ADS bill. We have Secretary Riley Hughes for the first hour. And then at 1, we have Ellen until 1:30, and then she has to go.
No chair.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how long I'm gonna make it today. So I would say, I don't know if this is permissible or not, but I support the budget letter as it is written now. And if we took out the AHS, I would also support the letter. I don't know if you're intending to do a straw poll or a poll, but so I don't know what will happen, and I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And I'll try and hang it. but
Okay.
It's
Dara, at your
Feel a
clerk's
little-
training.
I sure am. Feel a little.
Can you please ask, I know that Rep. Sibilia can't vote if she's not here. We all know that. So
Okay.
if we take a formal vote on the budget letter, then we'll just have to show a member absent if Laura's absent. Ask about a straw poll.
Okay.
And in the meantime, I'm gonna check in with Approps and see if they even care whether we do a straw poll versus a
Okay.
formal vote.
Okay.
And I have asked Secretary Moore, you guys should have in your email, she sent the legislative language that she had promised to get to us. So she checked in with the other state agencies and got their feedback. And basically what she is sending us is their consensus suggested legislative language for H125. So I did ask her if she would be available to come in, and I haven't heard back yet.
That was a great list. I noticed that it does not include data that from ag, which would be, I think, actually sort of data from ag could be.
Yep.
Relevant.
So that is,
I have a question,
yeah,
general question. Do we know what the agency budget is for ADS? What's their annual? How would we look that up?
you mean
Like-
ADS's overall budget?
Yeah,
Well, it would be in the governor's proposed FY26 budget. Under ADS, I think they're a hard one to get a handle on because of,
so he lists each agency and how much. I mean, what's the
It's-
budget document that?
I will just say, good luck. But, I would actually just recommend that you ask
Ask them all.
Representative Harrison.
Oh,
You're right. It is
Commissioner probably
for the bill
no,
though.
right?
I would ask Representative Harrison.
Okay.
Yeah, and then when
I
we,
can tell you also.
yeah,
Because I'm the liaison to appropriate.
Oh, okay.
With repairs. It's their direct appropriation is not that much. It's $4 million. Most of their money comes from building other agencies. It's called the internal service fund.
Oh, right. So. Do you know how many people are working at ADS?
100 and something, if it rings a bell, I'd have no.
and just a reminder, that we do have JFO and Legislative Council working really hard on a pretty comprehensive briefing memo for us
Oh, yeah.
on IT funding.
Okay.
And when that's ready, it's a post crossover project, but when it's ready, they're going to present that to us in a joint hearing with the Senate. And that'll be kind of the kickoff for the work that we do, you know, the second half of this session and next year, getting a real handle on how the state budgets and plans for its IT investments. And so we have I think, a pretty major body of work between now and the end of the biennium on that topic. And we will be able to ask everything we want to ask about how ADS is funded and how it works and how the money flows between agencies. And so it's going to be, I mean, I'm kind of excited about the memo, and they're really spending time on it. So,
Yeah, that's good.
yeah. So, yeah,
Ones of us are gonna be out for a little while, at 10 o'clock. Is the dashboard stuff after the secretary leaves what they've done? Is that in the second half?
yeah, I mean, you can always watch it on YouTube. I want to make the best use of the secretary's time. And I think having her, you know, directly address why they're suggesting changes to the language, I want to make sure she's here for that. So we'll probably talk about that first and then move to the dashboard stuff later, I would imagine, but I just want to make sure we're using her time wisely. So, all right, why don't we take a 10-minute break so that we can